Okay, these new tech cards that people are utilizing in the OCG are actually kind of crazy. What's good, YouTube? It's me, your boy Squid, back in their Squideo. So, basically, you guys know in the OCG, the Yugioh deck is one of the best decks right now. This is like a rank 4 spam deck. It's basically Zodiac and Sprites. They had a baby. You can have a rank 4 that now searches 2 cards. You have a rank 4 that pops multiple cards, not once per turn. And you have a field spell that has a passive continuous effect to negate monster effects on the board. I mean, these guys are really, really powerful. They're coming to TCG in December, but people are starting to play some bizarre techs to adapt for the metagame in Japan. And I thought these were actually really interesting. So I was like, hey, no one's really talking about these. Let's take a look at what the heck they're actually brewing over there. So if we want to cook over here in the TCG, we can kind of use that as inspiration. Okay, so the first tech card that a lot of people are playing is Evenly Matched. This is obviously a very popular card in and out of formats in the TCG. And how it works is, especially against Yugioh, because they invest a lot of resources to actually make their end board, hitting them with it evenly basically trades away a lot of cards that they have on the field, and then when the smoke clears, they're left with like a Yugioh detonator on field, which you can deal with using engine or using your non-engine. Obviously, if you're playing the Yugioh mirror match, you can use the effect of X Yugioh, who allows you to actually send an Xyz from your extra deck to the graveyard to summon himself out. So basically, if you send Meteorologic Aggregator on the summon, this card doesn't activate, by the way, it's a lot like Black Witch, you activate the effect of Meteorologic Aggregator in your graveyard to then negate the detonator, and then you're basically able to play, right? Because you're getting rid of that. So Evenly Matched has been a very, very powerful contender in a lot of side decks. Some people are even main decking this card just for how like crazy it is going second. But because Evenly is so prevalent, that's also another reason why a lot of people have been playing Artifact LANCEA. Now, if you know, we are also getting another deck in Crossover Breakers that's almost as powerful as Yugioh, to be honest. It's called Malice, and these guys basically are Cyber's monsters that get their effects when they're banished to special summon themselves back to the field, and then they get trigger effects on the field to set a trap from their deck or spam a bunch of Cyber's monsters via link climbing. So, long story short, you don't want them to banish, which is why LANCEA has been a mainstay in a lot of side decks. But at the same time, Evenly Matched, you know, you get some crossover there by literally using LANCEA in response to an Evenly Matched when you're going first. So yeah, a really, really powerful card that people are playing now in the side decks is Artifact LANCEA. So get your QCRs, you know, if you don't have them already. Also, guys, if you like this type of content, I do have a Patreon, link below in the description. Gonna be posting a lot of competitive content, masterclasses, just stuff about Yu-Gi-Oh in general. My next Patreon video will be about the Shark deck. Yeah, this is like a Yugioh deck before Yugioh's. It's a rank 4 spam deck. I think the deck is really powerful and it's a solid rogue contender. You can definitely win regionals. Anyways, guys, if you enjoy my content, want to support the channel, check out the link below in the description to the Patreon. Now, another huge trend that a lot of the OCG players are gravitating towards is actually siding in heavy Omni Negate trap cards. So Solemn Judgment has been maxed out in almost every single Yugioh deck going first because it's just a very, very powerful 1-for-1 trade. You know, when you have like mid-range deck formats where you have a lot of hand track battles, but also at the same time, you're wanting to negate the powerful high impact cards like Evenly Matched, that's where Solemn Judgment really comes in clutch. I mean, Solemn Judgment is just a clean trade against a lot of the board breakers, as well as being good when you use it defensively against your opponent trying to XC summon. You know, you get a 2-for-1 out of this. This is always a good deal. Now, this is another reason why a lot of people are playing Iron Thunder. Yep, Iron Thunder is an alternative to Solemn Judgment that actually allows you to negate the same things, but at the same time, it pops all of the cards in the same zone as that negated card once you destroy it. Now, this means if your opponent is half competent, they will be activating cards like Harpy's Feather Duster or Evenly Matched in the same column as one of your monsters or your spells and traps. So zone placement definitely does matter again. So that means if you chain Iron Thunder, you're going to be losing one of your own cards in the process. But OCG players have decided, you know, 3 Solemn Judgments is not enough to guard against heavy board breakers. So we're actually going to start playing copies of Iron Thunder just to guarantee that we protect our board, because even if you do activate it in a zone, it's still a random chance that you hit something, or if you hit my detonator, that's all right. I'm stopping the Evenly Matched. That's all that really matters. So counter trap cards have become really, really powerful again, especially now that in Yu-Gi-Oh, there are a lot of things that are chainable. So counter traps being the one thing that's not chainable, especially in a format where Red Reboot is actually banned. Players are now playing Solemn Strike again. This is another high impact counter trap card that saw a lot of play in the past during Zodiac format for the same reasons. You know, if you're going first, you set up Solemn Strike, you get to negate and destroy a powerful monster summon, or negate the activation of an effect, which can also be from hand, so that protects you when you use it against a hand trap in the ground game. So this card is actually really, really powerful, and 1,500 life points is not a huge cost as opposed to Solemn Judgment, which you pay half your life points, but obviously Solemn Strike is a lot weaker than Solemn Judgment when you compare card to card, so Solemn Strike has been a secondary option after maxing out on Solemn Judgment. Now, there's another Solemn card. If you guys have been playing as long as I have, you'll remember this card, Solemn Scolding. This is a card that I don't see any OCG players currently playing, but I think it could actually be good in a TCG format where it's a lot lot slower. You know, we don't really have max C, so that's a big game changer. And cards like this might just shine as an additional copy of Solemn Judgment. This card is basically Solemn Judgment, but also Solemn Strike, because it not only negates summons, but also negates the activation of a monster effect in addition to spell and trap. The only drawback being, of course, you can only activate this card if it's the only set card that you control, which means that on a good day, if you do open other cards like Impermanence or Solemn Judgment alongside the Scolding, you do have to use those other cards first, but that's obviously quite easy as long as you sequence it in a way where you leave the Scolding for the end. It's still going to be just as high impact, now at the cost of 3,000 life points, but still, this is a really good card that has a dual utility of being able to negate hand traps along the way while doing everything that Solemn Judgment can. So that's definitely a card to keep your eyes on. And as far as I'm concerned, there are no real reprints of this card recently, so I think it might actually trickle up in price. If you guys want to pick them up now, it would be a good time to do so. So before we talk about more Ryzeal related techs, because their metagame is basically just Ryzeals, well, we're going to take a look at this obscure card that caught my eye. Land Flipping. Yes, this actually features the artwork of Upstart Goblin on his adventure. You know, this guy's been on a lot of different card artworks, but on this card specifically, it says target a face-up card in a field zone, banish it, then place it face up in the other field zone. Then you can also choose a field spell with a different original name in the current controller's graveyard and place it in the face-up field zone of the player whose field card was banished. If you're playing a field-based deck and you encounter a mirror match, you activate this card going second, targeting their field spell, flip it over to you, so you steal their field spell, and then you could give them one of your own field spells if you have it in the graveyard, but more often than not, you probably don't want to do that. So long story short, it's a change of heart for the enemy's field spell. And you know, in a certain matchup, aka Runic Stun, this sometimes does come up where you can just steal your opponent's fountain, which is exactly what people are doing in the OCG, right? Because you can't destroy a fountain easily if they have Yugioh or they have Munin to protect from Cosmic Cyclone, but you can steal their fountain. That doesn't interact with anything on the table, and also it gives you a free fountain that you can use because you're playing Runic Stun just like your opponent, right? So this is an obscure card. I think it could see more and more play if we do get like tier 0 or tier 1 formats with field-based strategies. So in the mirror match, this card could actually be really relevant. And I had to read this card a couple times because the wording really hurt my brain. Then I realized it was a permanent change of heart, and I was like, wow, this card is actually really powerful. So back to the Ryzeal metagame. Obviously, these guys are strictly level 4s. They need level 4s to interact because they play all rank 4s in the extra deck for the most part, which is why these Floodgate trap cards might actually be relevant again. If you guys remember STYGIAN DIRGE from the past, we did play this against Burning Abyss because they only played rank 3s. So that reduced all of the levels by 1, which is the same case here. If the opponent does not come prepared with something in their extra deck to interact, then you can basically reduce all of their monsters to level 3, so they will not be able to actually go into the rank 4 Xyz monsters. This is assuming you go first, of course. So now with Skildrin at 1, you know, Rivalry, Goes Match, all the good Floodgates are at 1. This Floodgate is actually at 3, and it specifically hits Ryzeals quite hard. Now, I know a lot of people are also playing Mischief of the Gnome. This card reduces the levels of all monsters in your opponent's hand by 1, which means if you go first, you set it, you activate it, then you reduce all of their levels to 3, so the opponent's gonna have a little bit of a hard time. And this is a lingering effect, so it applies to your opponent's entire hand for the turn. It doesn't matter if they don't have the monster already, if they go like Pot of Prosperity or Bonfire to add a Ryzeal, nope, that one will be reduced by level 1. So this card is quite high impact. Now, in the OCG, they still have Beatrice, so they've been sending this card off of Beatrice to control the Ryzeals when going first. But in the TCG, we don't quite have the luxury. Thank goodness Beatrice is banned. But of course, being a normal trap, we can still set it face down off of Triple Tactics Thrust, which people are already doing for cards like Dimensional Barrier. So this is another option. I mean, I guess Barrier would just be better, but maybe in some circumstance, this could be another option. It does reduce the levels, so that does still lock out your opponent technically, especially if they're not playing any Link monsters in the extra deck. This is another crazy Ryzeal attack. So people are playing Astral KURIBOH with Crooked Cook. Now, for those of you guys that are not familiar with Astral KURIBOH, this is an extender that basically says you reveal one number Xyz monster in your extra deck, then special summon this card from your hand and make its level become that revealed monster's rank. But also, a number monster who uses this card as material gains the effect where that monster cannot be destroyed by battle. So if you guys got PTSD from Right Hand Shark back in the day with Crooked Cook, this is now another viable option to deck out your opponent because Crooked Cook is unaffected by card effects and also cannot be destroyed by battle. So somebody in the OCG actually was trolling with this a while back in the event. If people are not playing Underworld Goddess, there is no out to Crooked Cook, which is kind of crazy to think about. So there are a lot of board breakers in this video, but this one is obviously not much of a surprise. Ultimate Slayer has been picking up in popularity because of the fact that it's a great 2-for-1 option. When you have a metagame that's very focused focused on one single type of extra deck monster like Yugioh, you can use their own tools against them. For example, sending the Meteorologic Aggregator off of Ultimate Slayer to get rid of an annoying Detonator. Meteorologic Aggregator would then trigger in the graveyard to negate a face-up Floodgate or another problematic monster on the board. Now there's one small problem with this. There is actually a Toolbox Xyz monster in the Yugioh deck that protects their monsters from being targeted, and yes, if you stay until the end of this video, you'll actually see how that card works. So if everyone starts playing that card, Ultimate Slayer will lose a lot of value. But again, it is quite flexible because you can use it against fusion-based strategies as well. I'm talking mainly Azamina Ilia Silva, which is an Omni Negate. Now, if we send Entis, they cannot respond thanks to Ultimate Slayer's inherent effect, and then we can trigger Entis in the graveyard later on to pop another card on the field, which is always great. 2-for-1s in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are amazing, and Ultimate Slayer is definitely a card that's very, very powerful when your opponent cannot respond with monster effects. And then the last one I want to talk to you guys about is also probably the best one in my opinion. So a lot of people have been playing STARLIEGE Photon Blast Dragon. This is a generic rank 4 that has a very powerful effect. While it's on the field, your opponent cannot target monsters you control with 2,000 or more attack. With card effects, also they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is actually really irrelevant because if you make this card first, you can now go into Yugioh Dual Drive, which cannot actually get imperm. Now, obviously, you can do another play where you make the Yugioh Detonator first and then make Dual Drive. When they imperm, you can chain the effect of Detonator to pop your own Dual Drive. But having Photon Blast Dragon just means they cannot interact with any number of hand traps. If they have Double Veiler, that's not going to be an option. And best of all, this card actually protects itself because Yugioh Dual Drive has a continuous effect that gains all your monsters by 100 attack for every material that's attached to it. So the Photon Blast Dragon just gains 200 attack and becomes 2,000, therefore protecting itself along the way. So that was supposed to be the design flaw that they had in mind when they were making this card. Yeah, we're gonna make this card beneath 2,000 attack so it doesn't protect itself, but Yugioh Dual Drive just has something else to say about that. So that's really, really cool that this is an option. Now it goes a little bit further. So if you guys read between the fine print, you might notice that STARLIEGE Photon Blast Dragon is actually a dragon type monster. And last I checked, there's a very powerful floodgate for dragons that everyone chucked into their bulk bin. Dragon's Bind is the exact card that some random players in an OCG tournament a little while back took advantage of. This is a continuous trap card that says, activate this card by targeting a dragon type monster you control with 2,500 or less attack or defense, which STARLIEGE Photon Blast Dragon actually fits the criteria for. And then while this card is face up on the field, neither player can special summon monsters with attack less than or equal to the original attack of the monster. And we just talked about Yugioh Dual Drive actually increasing the attack of STARLIEGE Photon Blast Dragon, which means the more you increase the more materials that Dual Drive has, then the less possible chances of your opponent special summoning a monsters, because basically they can't summon anything with 1,800 or less attack, which is like all of the monsters in the current metagame. So this is a one-sided vanity's emptiness while you're going first, assuming you can get to the Photon Blast Dragon, which is kind of nuts to think about. And if you have Dual Drive actually boosting Photon Blast Dragon to 2,000 or more attack, then that Photon Blast Dragon cannot be targeted nor destroyed by card effects either. So that just means that you just wall up with the dragon while you have Dragon's Bind, and your opponent literally has to stare down this floodgate that says you can't play. Fun fact, it has Seiru on the actual artwork. I thought that was kind of cool. So, I mean, these are the main tech cards that I've seen so far the OCG players actually utilizing for the Yugioh metagame, but it's continuously evolving. You know, they're getting a new set soon, so we'll see what the heck happens. But in the TCG, I expect this deck to be very, very powerful, high tier 1 in about 2 months' time. So, guys, let me know what you think. Are there any other tech cards that you might have considered for TCG? Let us know in the comments below. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.